Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all the apps people like to listen? How do I make money from my podcast? Well, the answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. When I started using Anchor to do my podcast, it was so extremely easy that I haven't even bothered to look for another app to use. I love this app. It's the only one I deal with, the only one I even recommend, period. I recommend you get on there ASAP. If you want to start a podcast, this is definitely the place to go. It's easy. You can drive around and record. You can sit in your basement and record. You can do it anywhere. It's fantastic. So if you've always wanted to start a podcast, make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start, anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Adam Rich from the Really Rich Podcast. And listen, you know how many people that I've met or talked to in my life that have used the past as to somehow cripple them from like being able to move forward in any positive way. Like they hold on to stuff that has very little effect on what they can do going forward, but they hold on to it because it's somehow either emotionally or, I don't know, intellectually or damage them in some way where it makes them, I guess the self-esteem is just not built up. And it's sad to see because there's so many things that happen in a person's life when they're growing up that they go through that you can call it, or I mean, you can look at these things, and if you allow them to, they can damage you. They can cripple you from ever being able to bounce back and make what you want for your future, come true. And I hate seeing this, man. I hate seeing it because when you get older, when you reach a certain point, whatever age it is, I don't know if there is an age or just a time or just a moment in your life where it'll pop up in your head that the past is over. And no matter what you've gone through in your past, and I'm not trying to belittle anything that has, been damaging to you. I mean, there's a lot of horrific shit that goes on in people's lives that is traumatic. It's damaging. It can make you feel like less of a human being, less of a person. And I understand. I'm not trying to make light of it. I'm not trying to. I really want to be sympathetic to people that have gone through some really damaging shit. But what I've noticed is in the future, most people, when they get older, they like a lot of times the bad story, the horrific upbringing, the horrific childhood, or the terrible past that you've gone through. A lot of times, if you look, some of the most successful champions of any kind of a field, any kind of, not just sports, but any kind of a field, any kind of a business, the most awesome stories that we hear about usually start from the darkest places. They start from basically the whole world being against somebody, or not having a lot of benefits growing up. Maybe the person was poor, maybe they had horrible parents, alcoholic or abusive parents. Sometimes some of the greatest bounce back stories come from really devastating things. Like, I don't want to get too graphic, but let's call it what it is. I mean, sometimes you see some really great stories come from somebody who may have dealt with molestation or rape or the death of the death or loss of a great loved one, a mom, a dad, a child, anything. There are certain things that happen in people's lives that are just absolutely terrible, and there's no nice way to put it. There's no There's no friendly way to talk about it. It just is what it is. It's traumatic. It's devastating. It's horrible. And I don't wish anybody have to go through this, ever. But what I want you to know is that if you have gone through anything that you consider to be damaging, anything that you consider to be a huge setback, or you don't have the self-esteem because life has always been against you, you've never had anything handed to you, everything has come difficult, I want you to know something, that when you have gone through the worst things in life, when you bounce back from that, and you change your story, and you make it a success story, you accomplish the things that you want to accomplish, after going through those terrible moments, those make for the greatest success stories ever. And think about it. I mean, think about how many people have come from nothing and had nothing when they were growing up, or they had the worst set of circumstances, they had the worst childhood, they had the worst parenting, the worst schooling, the poorest upbringing, the poorest setting to grow up in. And then they accomplish great things. It makes for some amazing storytelling, dude. And listen, if you've gone through these bad things, these terrible things, and you think to yourself that you've always had, the worst luck and things are always against you and it doesn't look promising, let me be the first to tell you that your story's not over. Everything that has ever happened to you in the past, up until this very second, is the past. It's over with. It's not coming back. Everything that's ever happened to you up until right now is over and done with. You understand that? Like, it's easy to know, it's like easy to understand that you can move forward and change your trajectory in life when you realize that anything that's ever happened to you, good or bad, if you've won all the tests in school, you've won your spelling bee, you've aced all your tests, you've had money your whole life, you've had great parents, great relationships, great everything. That shit's over with. Right now, everything that you've ever had that was great or horrible is now in the past. And I'm not saying that if you grew up with money and you still have money, I'm not saying that that's over with. What I'm saying is anything that you've dealt with in your life is now officially in the past as of right this second. Your whatever you want for your life going forward, regardless what you've dealt with, regardless how good or bad your life has been, that shit is over with now. The past, it's in the past. The past is never coming back. So regardless if you were the most popular kid in high school and now you're in your late 20s and those days just seem long gone, that shit's over with. If you were the biggest fucking nerd in high school, nobody liked you, everyone hated your guts and thought you were the dorkiest kid ever, that shit's over with now. It's all gone. It does not matter what it is that you have gone through, good or bad. What matters is what you do from this day going forward. The past is over. The future is just beginning right now. Now is the future. And so if you want to do anything in your life, anything at all, if you hated the first 20, 30, 40 years of your life, and you thought it was been nothing but a train wreck, a disaster, just terrible, and you hated it, but you're still here, you still have time to do something. Say you're 40 years old. Say you're 50. Fuck it, we'll go even higher. Say you're 50 years old right now listening to this. You still have the potential to live another 50 years. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to. I'm not saying that you're guaranteed another 50. What I am saying is you have the potential to live to your 100. And shit, in the next 50 years, who knows what kind of medical science they're going to come up with. You may live to 150. You may live to 120. You may live to 200. Who the fuck knows? Maybe you're conscious. Maybe in the next 50 years they develop a system to change your consciousness, put it into a new fucking AI, robot, whatever, and then you can live to infinity. Like, let's say that that's a possibility. Regardless, if you have another 30, 40, 50 years minimum, why would you just sit back and say, this is it? This is all I'll ever have. My story has already been written. It hasn't. No matter what you've gone through. And I desperately want people to understand this, because it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what you've gone through in life. It doesn't matter what kind of setbacks you've ever had. Today can literally be the beginning day of your future. And I know it sounds cliche. I know it sounds silly. Oh, this is the first day of the rest of your life. I know how silly that shit sounds. I understand it. But it's 100% true. 100%. It is literally 100% accurate. You could start something today. You could start learning a new skill or going to school or something right today. And within 5 to 10 years, you could be a fucking pro and making money doing it. Like doing whatever it is you want to do. I mean, imagine this. Imagine if, imagine if you have a bunch of collectibles sitting at your house and you want to, and you never do nothing with them. They're just there. You just like them. You have collectibles and blah, blah, blah. And you know that they're worth money. You've never opened them. You have some shit signed or whatever. You have autographs. You have toys or baseball cards, whatever the fuck it is. And you are working at some job, whether it's part-time, full-time, doesn't really matter. You have some job and you hate your job. If your goal, like you just love collectibles. If your goal in life, if you think that it sounds like it'd be a great idea to start to, sell those and make money, and imagine if that was your lifestyle. Imagine if you could make a living selling those collectibles, then traveling and buying more collectibles, and then marking the price up and then selling more. You can literally do that now. Like, that's literally an idea. When I was young, I had all these different collectibles. I had baseball cards. I had like little, they're from Marvel. Well, not the baseball ones, obviously, but I had cards that were from Marvel. They were like baseball cards, trading cards, whatever you want to call them. But they were from Marvel, and they were all these different designs, all these different action or characters like Wolverine and Cyclops and all the people you know. And so I had all these cards. I had all these different action figures. A few of them I left in the boxes and all this. And my goal, I remember specifically, I bought one time. I don't want to get too into it, but one time I bought a fucking Beanie Baby. And I put it in a glass, like as soon as it was bought, it was in a glass case and everything. And I left it in there. It's always been in there. And I thought one day it was going to be worth a lot of money. And maybe it is. I haven't even looked. I got to a point in my life where I didn't give a shit anymore about these collectibles. Because when I was younger and there was no internet, there was no eBay, there was no social media, there was no YouTube, I thought to myself, well, when am I ever going to sit around at a trade show and have people walk up to me and potentially buy this? It's got to be an item that's going to be at a good price that people would pay. It's got to be the right customers got to want to buy this specific thing. Like, it just seemed like just a far shot. It just seemed like it was just not going to happen. Well, then all of a sudden the internet changed everything. All those collectibles that you have, all those that I had, I could now, if that was the plan that I wanted, what you can do if you wanted to sell these things is go online, start a YouTube video. Well, first off, do some research to figure out what the cost of these things are, like what you can actually sell them for, what they're worth now, what kind of condition yours is in. Do a little bit of research in your spare time. Then you could make a YouTube video about each and every single different collectible. Maybe you have 100 or 1,000 different collectibles. That's 100 or 1,000 different videos you could make. Then you take pictures of each one. You put those up on social media. You put them on everything: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Pinterest. You name it, you put it on there with a little description. You make a little link to your email address where people can find you. Or if you set yourself up a website, if you have enough time, if you have enough money, if you do all this, you set yourself up a website. Eventually, now you have views. You have people that are actually researching this, because there's a lot of people that will go on YouTube right now to figure out how much is it going to cost for a 1992 Wolverine special edition action figure still in the case, blah, 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 blah. You're going to find something somewhere. You're going to find information on exactly what you're looking for. Somebody else in the world is also looking for that exact same thing. So you may not find it locally, because that's what you had to do in the past. If you wanted to sell this shit, you had to go to a trade show, and you had to hope that somebody local wanted exactly that. It was not an easy way to make a living. Okay, it might have been a fun way to make a living for people that like doing it, but I didn't care enough because that just wasn't who I was. I like the collectibles. I like the idea of it. I like the idea that, hey, if I buy something today, maybe 40 years from now, it'll be worth something. I like the idea of that. I've always been into that style of investing, I guess. I've always saved money because I always thought, hey, maybe one day this will be worth a lot, or one day this amount will be up there, you know? So anyway, I got rid of all my shit, most of it. I don't have a whole lot left. I have some stuff, but it's not even, it's nothing that I would make a fucking page over, a YouTube channel and all that stuff over, because I don't have a lot. But if that was your thing, if that's what you really love to do, and right now you're working at a job and you just fucking hate this job, it just drains your life force, and you just wish you had a way out, these are the things that you can do in your spare time to project your life in a different direction. And it's not too late. It doesn't matter what kind of upbringing you had. It doesn't matter what life you've lived. It doesn't matter how non-successful your life may have been. You still have time to change that. And unless you're 95 on your deathbed right now, I don't know what else you're doing with your time. Because let's be honest with you, a lot of us are just sitting around watching Netflix, or sitting around playing video games, or sitting around catching up on shows, or looking at Facebook, or looking at Instagram, and just going through the motions, just waiting for your next day at work. And it's not a fun way to live. Unless you really love your job, your 9-to-5 job, or your, whatever hours it is, unless you just like your 40-hour-a-week paycheck, and you're just content and you're happy with your life, then I wouldn't change anything if that's the case. If you're happy, don't change anything. Continue to do what makes you happy. But if you're miserable and you just don't have a whole lot of self-esteem, you think that it's too late for you, dude, it's not. And you can do anything that you want. There's a way to monetize anything now. There's a way to change your life at any given minute. But the only way it's going to ever happen is if you start. And that's the hardest part. That's what we all fear the most, is the start. Because if you want to change your life, it's a very scary idea. You're used to things a certain way. You're used to your life going a certain way. And even if you're not happy, you're at least used to it. You know how to prepare and plan for that. So it's easy to just wake up every day miserable and go into your job that you hate and just collect a paycheck every Friday or every 2 weeks or whatever. It's easy to do that. What's not easy is to completely change your life when you've had zero experience doing it. And let me tell you, it's definitely possible. As a matter of fact, when it's something you really care about, something you really love, it becomes very likely that your life changes in a good way because you're determined. When I started my podcast, I was very determined to change my life around. But I also, the one thing that I had going for me that helped out dramatically is I have patience. I knew that it's not going to happen overnight. I'm not going to go from having 0 listeners or 0 people listen ever to the next Joe Rogan in a year. It wasn't going to happen. To build a following, especially when you're not already famous. Like, I'm just some guy that works at a plastics company in Romulus, Michigan, just outside of Detroit. I'm not some famous comedian or on TV shows or in the entertainment world or, like with radios or media or movies. I'm not involved in that world. It'd be cool. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I don't want those things. Like, it would be kind of sweet if I was. But at the moment, I'm not. And maybe by the time you listen to this, maybe I am. But I don't know that. I don't know when that's going to happen or if that's going to happen. All I know is that I dramatically needed a change when it comes to my career. I love my life. I love my wife, my daughter, the house I live in, the cars that we have. I love everything about our life, just not the job. And that's the only thing I do. And listen, when you spend 8 hours a day somewhere, when you spend a third of your day somewhere and you don't like it, you better do everything in your power to change it. or you're going to be miserable. Because listen, I know that if I just continued to work at this plastics company, and listen, I'm not trying to shit on the plastics company, all right? It's just not me anymore. I realized eventually, unfortunately it took me too long, but I realized eventually that's not who you are as a human being. You're not just some worker that just goes into a factory every day and just plugs away for 30 years until you can finally retire. And then let's be honest, after you quote unquote retire, you're really starting what you really want to do. You know how many people? My dad worked for GM for 40 fucking years. And then he retired from GM, but now he does other stuff to make money, and it's like in a different way. And it's not that he still needs to work for a living. It's just that he's got free time now. So now he gets to do what he likes to do. And he also happens to make money. I don't want to wait till I'm 65 to live that life. Because who knows where I'll be at 65? I could be dead. I could be just starting the next chapter of my life. I don't know. I have no fucking clue. None of us know that. All I do know is whatever happened in the past, good or bad, and I've had a very good upbringing. I've had a very good life. I'm not going to sit here and say that I've had it rough and I've come from the streets and I've had a really bad life and I want everyone to like feel my story. I'm not saying nothing. I had none of that. And I'm not saying it to brag. I'm just saying I'm not trying to act like I'm somebody I'm not. I grew up in a two-parent house as basically an only child. I have two half-sisters from my dad's first marriage. One of them I've never really ever encountered. I've met her like 2 or 3 times ever. She's always been a train wreck. And the other one is a very wonderful half-sister of mine who has a very lovely family, very good kids, a very good husband. They're living very well and everything's good. But I grew up a very good portion of my life basically as an only child. I didn't really communicate much with my half-sisters growing up just because, the dad's previous marriage and all that just wasn't on great terms, I guess. But the point is, I grew up in the suburbs. My family had a decent amount of money. They weren't like millionaires. We weren't like loaded or nothing, but we weren't like hurting for food. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I had some rough childhood, that I've had to bounce back from some traumatic, horrible things in life. And I'm also not trying to pretend that everything is as easy as I'm making it sound. I'm just trying to let you know that you can't rule anything out just because of what your past looks like. You know how many girls that I knew in high school were extraordinary sluts, and now they're like great moms with loving husbands and that have solid families, and they're living a great, wonderful family life now. People change, and just because your past was a certain way doesn't dictate at all what your future is going to look like. You have the chance to change it any second of any day. You just have to be willing to start is number one. And number two, you have to be willing to stick with it because shit's not going to happen really quickly. Your life's not going to change and be glorious 2 days after you start changing it. It takes patience. You have to understand that things are going to be up and down. There's going to be highs. There's going to be lows. You got to take them all with a grain of salt. Keep plugging away. Pick something. Have a game plan. Have a future laid out. Really be thoughtful about what you want to accomplish in your life, and take the first step. And listen, you're going to fail. God knows how many times on the way. I couldn't tell you how many times I've failed at my podcast. You know how many times I've had my wife tell me that I ramble and say the same shit over and over? And I do. I know I do. I'm not denying it. I don't sit there and tell her like, oh, well, you just don't get it. No, I understand 100% what she's saying, and she's right. But the reason why I ramble, or the reason in my head at least why I ramble, I don't intentionally do it. I do it for the fact that I really feel like I try to lay out a framework of something, or I try to give an example of something, and then something else pops into my head, or something else that I think, or I come from a different angle. I try to come from all these different angles. Basically, I'm trying to give too much information instead of not enough. And I told her this. I said, well, the reason I try to give too much information instead of not enough is because you can always go back and listen to it again if you didn't catch it all. But if I don't give you enough information, you can listen to it 1,000 times. You're not going to get the missing information from it. So I would rather say the same shit 2 or 3 or 4 times just to make sure you get it, instead of not saying it enough. And listen, am I perfect? No. I know that I can be better about the stuff that I'm doing. I'm always trying to get better. But I don't ever look at it and say, oh shit, she's right. I've done it wrong. I might as well just throw the whole damn thing away and start over, or just never do it again. I try to just continually learn on the fly. If I have a bad episode, I'm sorry, I don't mean to. In my mind and in my heart going into it, I thought it was going to be a banger. And then it turns out like a fucking dud. I can't help that. I'm trying to do my best, okay? And I honestly believe that if you go back and listen to like my first couple episodes compared to now, you'll see a dramatic result, a dramatic evolution in my comfort level, my approach, my delivery. I think it's all gotten better. Do I think I'm where I need to be or that I'm perfect? No, of course not. But I feel like I'm going at least in the right direction. And the whole goal I set out from day one is to deliver information and advice and knowledge and anything that I can to help you change your life for the better, to be better in your life, to be happy in your life, to appreciate things. I just want to help. And do I do it the best way possible? Maybe not ever. But I'm trying, and that's the goal. But every fucking time that I've failed or that I've had a setback or that I've had moments where I woke up and I was like, I don't feel like doing it today. You're allowed to have setbacks. You're allowed to have failures. You're allowed to have time off. You're allowed to do whatever you want. But just understand that consistently trying is the best way. Practice. Like anything else, practice is what makes perfect. And it's an old cliche. I've heard it since I was 2. But it's just the truth. Practicing anything over and over and over and over ultimately always makes you better. It becomes like a muscle memory. It just becomes second nature. You know, it's very difficult sometimes for me to come to get on here and preach positivity and happiness and appreciation when I just had a fucking rough ass day at work at a job that really pisses me off regularly. You know? It's not like every day is nothing but sunshine for me. But I try to think about those things. I try to focus on the sunshine. Because let's be honest, some days are sunny, some are rainy. Some are warm, some are cold. But when it's cold out, I try to remember how great things are when it's warm. And when it's warm out, I try to remember how shitty things can be when it's cold. It makes you appreciate things better. It gives you a better understanding and perspective on your life and on things that have happened. And I can't stress this enough. This will be the last. I'm trying not to keep regurgitating the same shit, but this will be the last time I mention it in this episode at least. The past is over. Whatever you have done, whatever led up to this second, it's now over and done with. If you want things to keep going further and going good and getting better, you have to keep trying. You can't just say, well, my life has never been good. This is just the hand I've been dealt. Listen, that may be the hand you were dealt, but tomorrow's a new hand. It's just like poker. You can have 10, 15, 20 bad hands in a row where you just fold. And then all of a sudden you get that big fucking hitter where you take the whole damn pot. You take it all. That is very realistic in the world. That is very much like how the real world treats you. It may shit on you day after day after day for years. And then one thing turns it around and all of a sudden, bam, you got the life that you wanted. But I'll tell you one way you'll never get the life that you want is to just give up and say, listen, it is what it is. This is just what my life is. It's never been good and it's never going to be good. I don't give a fuck if you had the greatest upbringing in life for the last 40 years or if you had the worst one. What is tomorrow going to look like? It's not going to look too good if you don't do anything about it. If you just sit back and say, this is what it is. You got to try. And that's really all I wanted to say, guys. The past is over. It's done. See, and I did repeat it again. I didn't want to. I fucking told you I wasn't going to, and I did it anyway. Damn it. So, but that's, it just is what it is, man. It's over and done with. Stop dwelling on the shit that could have, should have, and would have been. It is what it is. It's over and done with. It's gone. Here we go, though. It's day one now. Right now is day fucking one. What are you going to do from here on out? That's all the time I got, guys. I love you so much, and I thank you for listening. I'm glad to be a part of this with you guys, and I'm so thankful for anybody listening to this. I really genuinely just want to help you guys. If you had it rough, if you had a bad life, if you've had bad experiences, a bad recent history, anything, man. It's all about your perspective. If you've had bad things happen to you on the way here, what did it teach you? You know, what lessons did you learn from it? What can you take from that going forward to help you? Because life is a big marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a big-ass marathon. You're going to have moments where you're tired and you just want to give up. But you got to keep pushing. You got time. You always have time. Could you get hit by a bus today? Sure. Of course you could. Could you get some kind of a bad illness or something? Of course. Anything could happen. But you've got to live your life like it's possible that you're going to be here for another 50 plus years. And when you look at it that way, what if you are here for another 50 years? What did you do? Did you do nothing for the whole 50? And you wasted it? You have to live like you're going to be around for a lot longer and prepare for that, act like it, do everything in your power to be better every day. Because if you are around for another 50 years, you're going to thank yourself from 50 years ago for trying, not giving up, and keep on plugging. And most importantly, people, no matter what you do, no matter what decision you make going forward, be patient. You have to be patient. Working your ass off for years and years and years with little payoff is normal for success stories. Eminem practiced rap since the time he was little. He didn't become a big name until he was like 26 or 27 years old. So he worked at it for damn near 15 to 20 years before he ever made good money off of it, where he could make a living off of it. Every athlete you've ever met in your life has worked their ass off from the time they're a little kid to a teenager to they're in their 20s before they ever get drafted to play professionally for big money. Everyone that's of any kind of success has years and years of grinding with very little payoff before they ever make it big. So start today. I love you guys. That's all I got. If you want to get a hold of me through the Anchor app and leave me a voice message, you can do that. If not, you can find me on Really Rich or on Instagram at Really Rich Podcast, on Twitter Really Rich Adam, Snapchat and YouTube. You can find me at Really Rich, and then on LinkedIn, guys. Please find me on LinkedIn. I'm trying to connect to everybody in the entire effing world. That's the goal. You can find me at Adam Rich. You'll see founder and host of Really Rich Podcast. I love you guys so much, and I thank you again for listening, and I can't wait to do this with you guys soon. Peace. I'm out of here.